Chapter 69. After Orochimaru's words, there was silence in the laboratory. Both the three generations of Hokage and Danzo were deeply silent, digesting the startling information revealed in Orochimaru's words. They did not doubt authenticity. The information in hand recorded in detail the entire course of the Great Snake Pill plan. Even if they repeat it, they will only get the same result. The third Hokage elder let out a breath and asked with some concern, "So, you mean, Mudun is an unknown force or a force that exists for the first generation of adults?" This force and existence, even the first generation adults themselves are not clear. The first master himself also thinks that Mudun is his own power? Yes. Orochimaru nodded seriously. Then how do we verify the authenticity of this force or existence? Tuanzang looked at the big snake pill and asked, "I'm not doubting you, but this is too bizarre. We must have evidence." The big snake pill spread his hands, expressing helplessness. He just wanted to go this far, and further down. He didn't know how to go for a while. The research conclusions of Mudun power also shocked him greatly. It's not that there are no verified channels. At this time, he has been acting as a transparent person's humorous voice, slowly making a sound. Suddenly, everyone's eyes turned to him. Humming. "Do you have a method?" "Master and nephew, what do you know?" "Sure enough, you have a way," the three said at the same time. "There are two ways." Humming nodded and stretched out two hands to indicate his meaning. "One is the Uchiha family, which is deeply entangled with the Senju clan, and the other is the tailed beast that has survived for thousands of years. I think exploring these two aspects should yield something." Surprise flashed in Orochimaru's eyes. Truly, these two directions, if you explore them, should be able to gain something, especially the latter. The tailed beast. As an intelligent creature that has survived for thousands of years, it must know many secrets in the world, and even the secrets such as chakra, the death of the gods, and the fury of natural energy can be answered. Wait a minute. Orochimaru's mind flashed, and he suddenly noticed something. It seems that the time when the tailed beast appeared coincided with the time when the 6 immortals taught chakra. Realizing this, Orochimaru's heart rippled. All kinds of conjectures came to his mind. If the tailed beast is concerned, when the third generation of Hokage heard Wanming's words, his eyes flashed with intent, and he said, "But Uchiha's side can be considered." "It can be considered, but not now." Tuanzang's eyes were a little eager, and he looked at the information in his hand and said, "Let's try it ourselves first to see if we can use the power of Mudun." Speaking of which, both of them have made a decision. They looked at the big snake pill at the same time. It's not difficult to take advantage of it. The big snake pill shrugged his shoulders and said with a casual expression, "Since Mudun is a power similar to immortalization, then use it in an immortalized way. Give me 3 days, and I should be able to have a preliminary result." "Good." 3 generations of Hokage have no opinion. "I'm staying here for 3 days." Tuanzang took a deep breath and said. Huming stood aside, as if ignored by them. "No, not ignoring." After chatting about Mudun, when the 3 generations of Hokage and Tuanzo walked outside the outer base, they all looked at Wanming, and their eyes signaled that there was something to say. Humming, although he didn't know what to say, he stepped forward. Orochimaru turned around and returned to the experimental equipment. He planned to live here directly in the past 3 days. Off base. The 3 generations of Hokage and Danzo stopped at the same time and looked at Void with complicated eyes. The progress of the Great Snake Pill's research on Mudun has been very slow. But after Humming refused to participate, insisted that Orochimaru was enough, and then recommended an assistant over. In just 1 month, the big snake pill bore fruit. And it's not an ordinary achievement. Directly groped out some of the essence of Mudun. This has nothing to do with Humming. They don't believe it in the slightest. "Teacher, uncle, why do you look at me like this?" Humming was furrowed by the eyes of the two. "Ha, he. The 3 generations of Hokage and Danzo smiled. The two looked at each other, and one stretched out a palm and slapped it on the shoulders on both sides of Wanming. "Well done, humble master and nephew. I shouldn't doubt your judgment." The whole person was shocked. What is this talking about? Read violent novels. Just go to Fellow Fiction Network. Diaresis 1/4. Do you think that I did this result behind my back? Are you kidding? Where did I get the scientific talent to do this? Hee. If you have any ideas in the future, remember to tell me as soon as possible. The 3 generations of Hokage left with a smile. Yes, senior nephew, uncle will not urge you in the future. Absolutely 100% trust. Danzo also patted him on the shoulder and walked away with a smile. Zero asked for flowers, leaving the void in place, his face speechless. Night. After washing up at home, he was ready to go to bed. Suddenly, the feedback from the system appeared in front of his eyes. What the hell? There is feedback at this time. Humming was shocked. He immediately sobered up and stared at the empty space in front of him. 8 strength improvement feedback. You have perfectly mastered the special power immortal body derived from the divine tree. The power of the divine tree devouring the planet, absorbing and refining natural energy into chakra fruit. Eating the fruit of Datuki Kaguya gave birth to the Otsuki Haji and the Otoki Hakamura. And the Otoki Haka inherited the power from the 10 tails, and this power was embodied in the power of the 2 attributes of the immortal body and the immortal eye in the descendants of the Otoki Hakagi. 8 Wanming's eyes widened in surprise. Immortal body? The big snake pill is studying Mudan over there. The system you don't give me feedback on Mujuan's power, give me feedback on the immortal body? Rumble. Without waiting for Humming to adjust his mood, an amazing vitality emerged from his body. The cells cheered. Muscles, bones, internal organs, nerves, and other internal organizations. Drastic changes are taking place. In a split second, as if with the passage of time, his vision returned to 1,000 years ago, and he saw a man with a white feather scarf tied around his forehead and a bun tied with a white rope on each sideburn. He had never seen the man, but suddenly he knew the man's name. Azura. The moment he realized the identity of this man, the scene in front of him shattered. The void has returned to the present time. He suddenly noticed something, touched his eyes in surprise, and took off the beautiful pupils on his eyes. Suddenly, a pair of golden red rays, cross-striped light-flowing strange eyes, appeared. But with a thought of humility, the thought moved. The light in his eyes dimmed little by little, until it was extinguished, and the cross markings in the middle of the pupils slowly closed, and the light disappeared. A few seconds later, these strange eyes were shiny and hidden. It turned into a pair of ordinary jet black eyes. No more beauty pupils. With his own will, Void Ming can freely reveal or hide his strange eyes of immortalization. Is this the power of the immortal body? Chapter 70. Yu-Ming could feel that the bearing capacity of his body had become stronger. The reason why his immortalized pupils have always been exposed is that as a newborn alienated organ, it is too strong for the rest of the body. He also belongs to the mortal body and cannot carry and contain these eyes well. Therefore, the Jin Ming fire eye was highlighted. But now it's different. I got the immortal body, which originated from the immortal human body after Mujuan's strength was weakened many times, which is equivalent to the preliminary immortalization of the body. Void Ming's eyes flickered, and his expression was solemn. The essence of Mudan is a kind of immortalized power. I get a weakened version of Mudan power, which is equivalent to getting a weakened version of immortalization, and this power is embodied in the vigorous vitality and physical energy in terms of physique. After the body has been immortalized, the intensity will go up, comparable to my 597 eyes. When the two fit, you can naturally hide and reveal the power of the eyes at will. This is normal. Otherwise, how could there be immortals who could not control their power? False Ming has been uncontrollable before, which is essentially an imbalance caused by local immortalization. The essence of the original Hokage's wood power is the power of the divine tree. The power of the divine tree condensed into the chakra fruit, which was inherited by the large tubewood Habi, manifested as 2 kinds of immortal eyes and immortal human body, and then inherited by the eldest son Indra and the second son Azura respectively. Eye and body strength. In other words, I have only received half of the power inheritance of the 6 Tao immortals now. Humming lowered his head and groaned. The large amount of information he got this time made him a little confused for a while, and he tried to sort it out. First of all, Immortalization is the process of practicing natural energy to become a god. And the Daituma clan, known as the god race, also uses the divine tree to swallow natural energy to become stronger. So in essence, the Daituma family is a generation of immortals. One of the ancestors of this clan once went extremely far on the path of cultivation of natural energy, completely transcendent, and refined a super high-level power with 7 nature changes chakra. Later, chakra was inherited by the immortals of Otsuki. In this way, chakra is actually a kind of immortal power, but it belongs to the Daituma family, and the Daituma has gone extremely far on this road, further than the 3 holy lands combined. Humming muttered to himself and nodded slightly. My golden flame eye belongs to the fruit of self-immortalization and belongs to the initial stage. But the immortal body that the system fed back to me is the result of the immortal of the Daituma clan. In other words, I, an outsider, stole the results. In this way, wouldn't it? Thinking of this, Yuming's heart suddenly became hot, and there was a touch of surprise and eagerness in his eyes. Suddenly, he realized his future path. The Big Tubewood family, after stealing the achievements of the Otsuki clan through the system, imitating the Shiba in the original work, and seizing the power of countless planets, he became a powerful god beyond life and death and across dimensions. It seems very feasible. Humming touched his chin and thought in his heart. Studying the wood-done cells of the original Hokage, the primary immortal human body was obtained, which is probably equivalent to the bloodline concentration of the close relative level within several generations of Asuras. So what if you study the Sharingan of the Uchiha family? If the Great Snake Pill got something from it, wouldn't the system give him feedback to the power of the immortal eye? After the immortal body and the immortal eye are together, can't he become the second six-path immortal? Heart warmed. Humming let out a mouthful, his expression unprecedentedly serious. So, there's no doubt that that's what I'm bound to do. That's the power of the Big Tubewood that is known as one of the gods. The research results of the Big Snake Bill on Mudan soon spread among the small circle of high-level. The Thousand Hands clan was agitated internally. Is the power of Lord Billa finally going to see the light of day? Great, my Thousand Hands clan will definitely prosper again. Lord Juma, are you sheltering us in the Pure Land? Richard has received a good disciple. Many of the Thousand Hands who knew and even participated in the research were extremely excited. They seemed to see the scene of the suppression of the ninja world once by Mudan reappeared, and the glory of the past was also crowned on the head of the Sanju clan. Uzumaki Maito was not happy to learn of this result. Instead, he watched coldly with mixed feelings. At the same time, within the Thousand Hands clan, there are also undercurrents. There are different factions within any big family, and within the Thousand Hands clan, not all of them support the study of Mujuan, and people from one faction think that this practice is extremely inhumane and goes against the concept of the Thousand Hands Pillar Zero. They also heard the wind and quietly gathered together to hold secret meetings. Late at night, in an abandoned public training ground in Konoha village, several burly, imposing and oppressive figures appeared. Read violent novels, just go to Fellow Fiction Network, Idiaresis 1/4. Their faces were blurred in the dark, and only the outline of their facial features could be seen, but they were familiar with each other's identities. It's time for us to make up our minds. One man spoke, making a hoarse voice. Let's do it, the other said in a deep voice. Well, now Konoha has slipped towards the abyss without knowing it, and the actions of Sarutobi Hinata and Shimura Danzo are completely contrary to the concept of Lord Billa when he established the village. A third voice sounded. The culprit is that guy in the Thousand Hands Gate. One of them spoke in an indignant tone, and said in an icy voice, under the banner of studying the mystery of the death of Lord Billa, he deceived everyone, and actually studied the Mudan power of Lord Billa behind his back. Enough, don't mention that guy. An old voice sounded. There was silence in the training ground. Everyone closed their mouths and looked at one of the elderly figures. This is their first 3.8 collar. Since everyone has the same idea, let's do it. The old Thousand Hands clan said, go and warn those two little guys not to kill people, but the research base must be destroyed. and all those materials must be burned. Yes. In the training ground, a group of figures should be solemn. 7 days later, Hu Ming left home at the invitation and went to the exclusive base of Mu-Juan's research. Last time, Orochimaru said that it would take a week to figure out the use of Mu-Juan's power. Although the system gave feedback at night, Hu Ming still pretended not to know, and waited until a week later before going to the experimental base to listen to the results. But walking on the road tonight, I felt unusually quiet. Void Ming stepped out of the range of the village, and suddenly noticed two auras lurking not far away, faintly hostility. Chapter 71. After he got the immortal body, he had a unique immortal perception ability. They can perceive the breath of life of all living creatures within a radius of 300 meters, and can vaguely perceive their attitude towards themselves. The two seniors of the Thousand Hands clan, "Please show up." Humming sighed and said. In his immortal perception, he clearly captured the breath of the two people, and had the unique tenacious vitality of the Thousand Hands clan. And with a touch of familiarity. Most of them were people he had seen when he was a guest of the Senju clan before. When the words fell, two figures flashed out, wearing masks, and stood 20 meters in front of Void Ming. Late at night meeting. Presumably the two of you are not chatting with me, just say something directly. Hu Ming looked at the two and said, "Go back." Humming. One of them spoke, his voice hoarse and unable to distinguish the line of voice. "Don't participate in Mu-Juan's research anymore, that's against the village's philosophy. Sarutobi Hinata and O3 Shimura Danza have already stepped into the darkness with one foot. You are still young and should walk on the right bright road." Sure enough, it was for this matter. When Humming heard this, he sighed helplessly in his heart. His teacher, the third generation of Hokage, has revealed that not all people within the Thousand Hands clan support the study of Mu-Juan, and many people of the Thousand Hands clan believe that this is a thing that is contrary to humanity and should be directly banned. For and no. Two different voices quarrel endlessly within Senju. But both sides have been restrained, and the conflict has been confined internally. Until the Great Snake Pill studied Mu-Dun and had some results, the powder keg was suddenly ignited. Internal contradictions suddenly turned into fierce conflicts. Everyone has their own positions and ideas, and there is no point in arguing, so let's not talk nonsense. Yu Ming beckoned to the two, and said expressionlessly, "Let's see the real chapter under your hand." How daring! One of the Thousand Hands clan suddenly drew his sword and pounced on Void Ming. His speed was extremely fast, like lightning, and he instantly crossed a distance of 20 meters. Zheng! The blade buzzed, and the trajectory of the slash could not be seen at all, and I could only see a cold light streaked through the air, brushing towards the void as if it was practiced. Moisture. A trace of electricity jumped from Humming's body, making a sharp sound. Thunder. Thousand birds flew. The moment the knife came to his face, the current on Void Ming's body suddenly expanded, surging countless Dao, and spreading outward at an extremely fast speed. In the blink of an eye, it was as if a cage woven with electric currents had been held up out of thin air. The sword-wielding Thousand Hands clan slammed straight into the thunder cage. HMPH. He let out a muffled snort of pain, but his movements kept stopping, and he actually held up the paralysis of the current, and struggled to slash at the void. It is worthy of the Thousand Hands family. Yu Ming gently stretched out a hand. Yang Dun hardened his skin, and his 5 fingers were like iron tongs, firmly grasping the cut blade. The bloodline, known for its tenacity and strength, was able to maintain its mobility under the influence of Ailjuan. But what if I was released at close range? Greek. Humming said. The current on his body instantly became several times denser. A large number of blue-white lightning flashed on him, like a furious snake python, launching a crazy attack in all directions. As soon as Fu appeared, he passed along the blade to this Thousand Hands clan. Abominable. This Thousand Hands tribe immediately abandoned the sword and retreated. The current on Void Ming's body is too terrifying. This degree of thunder, even with the blood of the Thousand Hands clan, he can't bear it. He withdrew tens of meters in one go, but he was still slow to react, and part of the current was transmitted to his right hand through the blade, causing huge damage to muscles and nerves. His right hand couldn't help but hang down, twitching abnormally. For the time being, this arm is no longer usable. Be careful. He's not an ordinary kid. Another Thousand Hands clan admonished in a low voice, and his hands quickly froze. The wind is 1,000 faces. He suddenly let out a breath. Chakra skyrocketed in his breath, turning into a rushing wind, and countless sharp wind blades were hidden in the wind. Want wind clay? Seeing this scene, the electricity on his body disappeared and he raised a palm. Shout! A large number of chakras gathered in his hands, compressed and condensed, and turned into a bright and soft chakra ball. And the chakra ball expanded rapidly, and the size increased dozens of times. In an instant, it became the size of a house. Super large jade spiral pill. Read violent novels. Just go to Fellow Fiction Network. Idiaresis 1/4. Humming through the huge spiral pill over. Bang bang. In midair, countless wind blades landed on the huge spiral pill, emitting an endless crisp sound, but it could not have any effect on the spiral pill. This is that spiral pill. How is it so big? The 2,000 Hands exclaimed. In their intelligence, they only mentioned the spiral pill in the basic form, and there was no variation form of the spiral pill, such as the big jade spiral pill, the hidden thunder pill, and the spiral shuriken. Therefore, seeing this huge spiral pill the size of a house, both of them were extremely surprised. Burst! The huge spiral pellet fell to the ground, and instantly dusted, digging a hole more than 10 meters wide and more than 30 meters deep. The soil around the pit is imprinted with swirling cuts. The 2,000 Hands have long since left the place. They appeared dozens of meters away, and their eyes under the gap in their masks were shocked. This kind of power has exceeded most killing ninjutsu. He is only 12 years old. 093. And his strength is not weaker than ours. Both found it unbelievable. I thought that sending 2 Shanin to deal with a 12-year-old child was a complete waste. No matter how talented Yuming is, there is no time to grow, and potential cannot become strength. Unexpectedly, the 2 upper ninja couldn't take the full sound. You can't release water, you have to treat him as an equal enemy. The 1,000 Hands tribe who had abolished one right hand said, his tone solemn. Well, his strength is no longer inferior to ours. The other nodded seriously. If you are not serious, it is likely to overturn. The eyes of the 2 became solemn, and the convergent momentum on their bodies emanated, becoming fierce and fierce. Tens of meters away, Humming walked unhurriedly and walked towards the 2,000 Hand clansmen. He said slowly, both of them are excellent shinobi who have experienced a lot of battles, and I was really flattered that they were sent to deal with me with a small graduation shinobi. You probably take me too seriously, don't you? HMPH-. The 2 upper ninja of the 1,000 Hands clan snorted coldly in unison. Fortunately, they are 2 people. If they are 1 person, or someone with a weaker strength, I am afraid that they have been taken down by Humming at this time. You deserve such attention. Your strength surprised us, but that's the end of it. We won't stay any longer. The 2,000 Hands tribe said. Chapter 72. Yes. Humming smiled faintly, and a golden light lit up in his dark eyes. Cross-like markings, cut through his pupils, flowed with orange-red light, as if a flame was burning. Then I'll make a quick decision. I haven't used them in combat since I had those eyes. Rumble. As he spoke, the light in his eyes brightened, illuminating the dim woods around him. The 2,000 Hands suddenly lost their speech. They felt a terrifying burning sensation coming from the faint gaze, as if looking directly at the sun on a summer day, piercing their eyes with pain. The blood succession limit of the pupil technique. You even hide such power? Under the mask, the faces of the 2,000 Hands clan became shocked. At the same time, in the land of the Sanju clan, what about people? Uzumaki Maito sat in the family council hall, his expression cold, his eyes flashing with anger. What about them? Didn't I let you keep an eye on them? Now tell me it's suddenly gone. In front of her, more than 20,000 Hands clan lowered their heads and looked heavy. No one spoke. The air was deathly quiet. The happy news of Mujuan's research came from the side of the big snake pill. And while they were happy, They did not forget that there was another voice in the clan. Although Mito Uzumaki does not like her husband's body being studied, she maintains a neutral attitude. Acquiescing in the occurrence of the situation suppresses the contradiction within the Thousand Hands clan. She guessed that this happy news would make the clansmen of another faction make drastic moves, so she told the people below to pay attention, but this night suddenly found that the upper ninja of that faction who did not go out on a mission in the village disappeared. 7. The combat power of the 7 upper ninja disappeared out of their field of vision. Uzumaki Mito didn't dare to think about what would happen tonight. "What are you doing here? All the people sent me out, and also notified the date to use the dark part. Let me find out those 7 people." Uzumaki Mito roared. The Thousand Hands tribe in front of them did not dare to refute, and they all responded. Soon, these Senju people divided their responsibilities. Some went to find the 3 generations of Hokage, some went to the Void House, and some went to the Muju research base. They guessed that the latter 2 were the most likely places for the disappeared 7. Humming, "Big Snake Pill, you must be fine." Uzumaki Mito sat down in his chair, his face full of worry. She was very worried that the 7 people would overreact and do bad things to the 2 children. That's 7 upper patience. Once there is malice, how can Void Ming and the Big Snake Pill escape? Especially you. Humming. Uzumaki Mito whispered to himself and clenched his fists. The Big Snake Pill is in the experimental base. There is someone to protect. The possibility of an accident is very small, but you live alone. What if they come to you? In the forest east of the village, the golden red eyes released a scorching power, as if summoning a round of the sun here, causing the surrounding temperature to suddenly rise by more than 20 degrees. The air quickly became muggy and hot. The 60-meter radius centered on the void instantly turned into a large furnace, and a heavy hot wind blew and roasted the creatures inside. The 2000 Hands clan were more than 40 meters away from Kuming. Hot sweat was rolling out, and their clothes were soaked in a few breaths, clinging to their skin. Their wheezing also became heavy, and their physical strength passed quickly in the heat. "No, you can't let him go on like this. We need to seize the opportunity." The 2000 Hands clan looked at each other, confirmed each other's thoughts, and nodded gently. The next moment, the Thousand Hands tribe who had abolished his right hand stepped sharply, stepping on the ground to crack, and his figure immediately turned into an afterimage and flew out. He held a kunai with his left hand, and the whole person was like an off-string arrow, swiftly piercing the void like wind and thunder. Wind escape, big breakthrough. Another 1000 Hand clan made a seal in sync, spitting out a breath in his mouth. In the breath, the refined wind escape nature chakra was released, and it turned into an extremely wide wind in midair and blew out. Cool. Most of the sultry air around was suddenly blown away. The temperature drops briefly, falling to a level that is tolerable despite the heat. Read violent novels. Just go to Fellow Fiction Network. Idiaresis 1/4. Die. The 1000 Hand clan who held Kuwu flashed and stabbed, and the momentum burst out, like a sharp sword out of its sheath, stabbing Kuwu sharply towards Kuming's neck. In the face of such an amazing blow, even the upper ninja of the same level did not dare to hard connect. In the distance, the corners of the 1000 Hands clan's mouth had already curved. But Humming only raised his eyes faintly, and glanced at this 1000 Hands clan who was holding Kuwu Thorn towards him, and the cross markings in his pupils condensed slightly, and the flowing orange-red light condensed. Bang! A force appeared out of thin air, causing a powerful explosion in the air. The strong shock wave spreads, creating a small translucent air cover. The 1000 Hands clan who was holding Kuwu hit his head on the air cover, and was directly blown away by the blast wave of the explosion, flying back upside down at a faster speed. Stream bucket. When the 1000 Hands tribe in the distance was anxious, he called out the name of this clan. Boom, boom. But there was no response. This 1000 Hands tribe was swept away by the explosion and flew 100 meters away. His body seemed to fall apart, smashing limply on the ground, and the light armor on his chest shattered, revealing the skin below that was scalded into bubbles. Vomit. A mouthful of sticky blood overflowed from his mouth, The whole person has already vented more and inlet less. If it were an ordinary person, he would have died a long time ago, that is, the bloodline of the Thousand Hands clan, so that, okay, he could survive for a while after receiving an explosion equivalent to a detonation charm at close range. Abominable. The Thousand Hands tribe who cast the spell in the distance gritted their teeth, and their faces under the mask were full of hesitation. He wants to rescue his injured companion, but the mission goal is at hand. A scale swayed from side to side in his heart. What made him feel even more stressed was that he didn't understand what had just happened. Void Ming did not make a seal, did not make a big move, as if just glanced at his companion, and an explosion appeared out of thin air, blowing his companion out. Is it a pupil technique that can unleash the power of explosive fire? This Thousand Hands tribe guessed in his heart. I'm not sure yet. I'll have to test it. As for the rogue, I'm sorry, but I'll die with you tonight. Thinking of this Thousand Hand clan made up his mind, and his eyes became firm and cold. Chapter 73. Don't you go to save people? Dozens of meters away, a pair of golden eyes continued to create high temperatures. The heat that had just been blown away by the great breakthrough art was quickly replenished and more intense, causing the temperature of the 60-meter radius environment to climb to more than 50 degrees. This high-temperature environment is already equivalent to the harshest desert temperature in the world. If any creature is directly exposed to this environment, it will suffer from heat stroke in 1 minute, shock in 3 minutes, and death if it is not treated in 5 minutes. Although I left my hand just now, I seriously injured him, and there is a high probability that he will die if he does not reach the hospital in half an hour. Humming stared at the Thousand Hands tribe who was more than 40 meters away, carrying the Thousand Hands tribe who was suffering from high temperatures. Do you want to neglect the lives of your companions in order to deal with me? This Thousand Hands clan member was silent, but his hands began to seal. It only took a second. A set of cumbersome mudras was concluded, and a strong wind-dreaded chakra aura emanated from him. Wind escapes the vacuum wave. The Thousand Hands clan man put one hand up in front of him, and the other hand lifted half of his mask, revealing his mouth. He let out extremely short breaths from his mouth. In every breath, there is a chakra of the nature of the wind. These Chak 867 pools turned into powerful wind bombs, shooting towards the void like machine gun fire. So do you still choose to fight? Humming sighed softly, his eyes gently sweeping over the flying wind bombs. Bang bang bang. In an instant, every wind bomb exploded, exploding a strong shock wave, and disintegrated before it flew in front of Void Ming. The essence of the explosion is the air expansion effect brought about by the temperature surge. In a very short time, through the golden flame eye, the virtual sound temporarily raises the temperature of a certain area. The sudden rise in high temperature will cause the air to expand rapidly, creating an explosive effect. Sure enough, where those eyes see, they cause explosions. In the distance, the Ren Hand clan muttered. His expression calmed down, and his hands continued to seal quickly. Once you know the principle, you can have a way to deal with it. Wind escape wind armor. He completed 8 seals in 2 seconds, creating a violent air stream around his body, like armor, wrapping around his body and blowing. This technique can withstand the power of C-level ninjutsu, and the power of B-level ninjutsu can also be offset by half. If the remaining half, my physique can resist hard. So, I can have a chance to attack. The Thousand Hands tribe took a deep breath, untied a short knife from his back, and held it in his hand. On his short knife, a layer of strong wind was also wrapped around it. The strong wind circulates on the blade, forming a pale white wind film, giving people a more terrifying sharp aura. Don't see that I have been using ninjutsu. My physical skills are not bad at all. Swish. As he spoke, this Thousand Hand clan suddenly slashed out. The strong wind on the blade gushed out, turning into a storm spread, blowing away a large part of the surrounding heat. At the same time, the figure of this Thousand Hand clan man melted into the wind and suddenly disappeared in place. This is an extremely advanced wind escape instantaneous technique. Because of the force of the wind, the friction force is greatly reduced, the propulsion force is greatly increased, and the superimposed effect is really like the super speed of wind and thunder, directly exceeding the dynamic vision limit of the naked eye. This kind of ultra-high-speed attack is a top assaulter on the battlefield. They will rush towards the densest concentration of enemies, and their furious power and super speed will transform them into flesh and blood cutters. All enemies will be slashed and knocked over, and they will not stop until they penetrate the enemy's large force. In other words, such an attack pursues the killing of the number of enemies at the team level. A single person is as vulnerable as a layer of paper in the face of such an attack. Rumble. But the face did not change color, but only squinted his eyes slightly. Suddenly, an explosion like a rocking ground occurred. The whole piece of air in front of him expanded rapidly. In the next instant, this piece of air turned into a bomb and activated, releasing a huge shock wave comparable to an 11th level storm. Bang! Within 100 meters of the surrounding area, the entire area shook. Storms, explosions, heat, hot air. All kinds of chaotic scenes are intertwined, and a small natural disaster is staged. After more than 5 seconds, the movement slowly subsided. On the ground in front of the void, a scar-like ravine appeared. Wisps of green smoke evaporated from the scorched black earth, and the insects and grass roots living in it were slowly burning, flowing with a trace of bright sparks. Around the ravine, there was an empty flat. The trees, flowers, and stones that existed were all swept away. Read violent novels. Just go to Fellow Fiction Network, Idiasis 1/4. It was blown away by the explosion, wrapped in air waves, and together with countless dust, it blew hundreds of meters away. I said, "You really are unswerving." At this time, Wan Ming suddenly sighed and looked up directly above. Buzz! A huge pale white blade cut down from 10 meters in the air. At the end, it was the Thousand Hands clan just now. His mask had exploded, his clothes were torn, and a large number of blisters were burned on the surface of his skin. But he still held the short knife tightly, and extended the wind chakra wrapped around the knife body, turning it into a 10-meter-long wind blade and slashing towards the void. In the eyes of this Thousand-Hand clan, he already had the will to die. Wind is Cap Vacuum Blade. His will to die is for himself, not for having to kill Humming. They are just in Mudun's affairs, which are not in line with the mainstream voice of the village, but it does not mean that there is no village in their hearts, and they do not intend to do the act of self-destruction of the Great Wall. For example, kill the geniuses of different factions in your own village. They are going to make a warning. Warn Wanming and Orochimaru, continue to do these things, someone will use drastic means to stop it. Whether you want to continue to do it or not, you will weigh it yourself. That's the plan of these people. Burn it. Humming said softly. The golden and red light in his eyes was intertwined, and in an instant it turned into a brilliant and gorgeous gilt, with a faint sacredness and majesty. Boom dash! As his gaze, the wind blade that fell above suddenly burst into flames. Starting from the tip of the knife, a gilded flame burned up, extending upward along the wind blade, devouring the vacuum blade that stretched 10 meters little by little, and extending to the hand holding the knife. In the horrified gaze of this Thousand Hands clan, flames wrapped around his body, engulfing his entire person. After a brief silence, he let out a high-pitched cry of pain. Flames spread throughout his body as if they had spirituality, gnawing at his skin, muscles, blood vessels, and bones layer by layer. No matter how his hands flared, the flames were not half a point dim. Chapter 74. Boom! After a few breaths, the Thousand Hands tribe was unable to control his body in midair, was captured by gravity, and fell heavily to the ground. Phew dash! Suddenly, a gust of hot wind blew through, as if a pair of invisible palms gently brushed his body. The flames that burned on his body were extinguished, leaving behind a scorched black human body, motionless on the ground, smoking blue smoke. Someone came looking for you, so I'll go first. Yuming looked at the scorched black Thousand Hand clan, and said lightly, "Don't worry, with their speed in half a minute, you and your companions can be treated, and there will be no life-threatening danger." Saying that, Humming turned and left in a certain direction. In place, it was scalding. The smell of scorching smell pervaded all directions, accompanied by wisps of blue smoke, polluting the air in a radius of 100 meters to the point that it was difficult to breathe. But two teams of people broke straight into this area that was not suitable for breathing. The time is not early or slow, it is exactly half a minute after Huming left. There are two guys who are still alive. The leader of one of the team members was Uzumaki Maito, who actually led the team herself, pointing out the two wounded at the scene with a disgusted expression. The others heard it and immediately stepped forward. The leader of the other team, Shimura Danzo, looked around coldly with a gloomy expression. Fire, very powerful fire. He leaned down and touched the scorched black dirt under his feet, and his face became even more ugly. It can scorch the soil black, at least the power of a B-grade fire, but the scope of destruction is limited to within 100 meters, but it destroys trees and stones to smithereens, and the spellcaster's level of manipulation is extremely high. Maito-sama, is there such a person in the Senju clan? Danzo asked, looking at Uzumaki Maito. No, at least not so good. Uzumaki Maito looked around, his expression equally ugly, and said, and the breath I perceive is no longer among the 7 upper shinobi who left. Yes. Tuanzo fell silent. As soon as Uzumaki Maito sensed the movement, they rushed here at full speed. But still slow. By the time it arrived, the battle was over. Just looking at the scene, it is impossible to confirm who the two warring parties are, and I don't know what happened to the situation of Yuming. Maito-sama, Danzo-sama, the identities of the two wounded have been determined. They are the 7,000 hands who ran away. One is called Rudu, and the other is called Teraigo. 1,000 hands tribe came over and reported. Uzumaki Maito and Danzo looked at each other, and their expressions were a little surprised. Isn't there a false sound? My master and nephew are not there, are they? The two couldn't help but ask. Yes, it has been searched once, and no figure of Humming has been found. But we have found a living footprint, which is the size of a 12-year-old child. The Thousand Hands clan said with a relieved expression. It's great that I didn't find any false sounds. If Shunming died or was injured here, you can imagine how angry Sandai and Uzumaki Maito were. Their Thousand Hands clan is bound to be in turmoil. Fortunately, those 7 guys did not do unforgivable things. Footprints. When Uzumaki Maito heard this information, his expression was stunned, and he couldn't believe it. Maito-sama, could it be? Danzo was equally surprised, looking at Uzumaki Maito in surprise. In the minds of the two, a thought appeared in unison. Humming defeated the two attackers, and then flew away. But is this possible? These two are the elite shinobi of the Thousand Hands clan, and the strong ones who survived the pile of dead people in the last war. How could it be defeated by a 12-year-old and still hit unconscious with serious injuries? Tuanzang's expression was incredulous. No, it's still possible. Uzumaki Maito said, that kid's secret progress is terrifying. He has a developed power, which only me and Hinata know for the time being, which coincides with today's scene. Uzumaki Maito looked around again, his eyes thoughtful. She had once sensed the immortalization of the void. It was when I went to the back mountain to look for Orochimaru, and although I had never met, with the help of Kigura's heart eye, I could feel the furious flame power of the void song position at that time. Only later, this power converged. And the breath that remained at the scene today, although it was a blazing, bursting flame, was unusually orderly, without the uncontrolled fury that was perceived that day. So much so that Uzumaki Maito did not react immediately. A new power? Tuanzang was a little shocked when he heard this. So, this master and nephew of his, at the age of 12, has the strength to easily defeat 2 elite upper ninja with 1 enemy and 2? We'll know if we keep up. Read violent novels, just go to Fellow Fiction Network, Idiaresis 1/4. Uzumaki Maito said calmly, pointing to the footprint he found. That's fine. Tuanzang naturally had no opinion and nodded. Meanwhile, the light in Void Ming's eyes converged, and Jin Mingyuo's eyes converged, accumulating strength. His consumption just now was not large. On the one hand, the immortal body itself had extremely high resilience. On the other hand, the move just now was an immortal method, using higher quality natural energy. The ninjutsu performed with chakra may take 100 copies to achieve the effect just now. But with natural energy, only 10 servings are needed. And I just used the power of these eyes just now, which is equivalent to moving my hands and feet. Humming muttered. When his eyes awakened, the first power was ignition. Where the gaze focused, flames were summoned out of thin air, creating a strong burning result. A bit like Amaterasu in the kaleidoscope pupil technique, Amaterasu can also summon pitch-black flames where the gaze gathers. But his golden fire eyes are more than that. It can also create high temperatures, so that the area within 50 meters of itself becomes hot and dry, and even burns afire. And a week ago, after receiving the power of the immortal body, Void Ming's manipulation power on these eyes increased. The range of manufacturing high temperatures has been expanded from the original 50 meters to 60 meters. At the same time, it can create a local instantaneous ultra-high temperature, forming air expansion, which becomes a powerful explosive attack. The lower limit of power is comparable to the detonation charm. If the detonation charm is attached to the ninja's body and triggered, it will blow off the hands and feet. While hurrying, Yuming pondered, my high-temperature manipulation is equivalent to detonating an initiation charm on the enemy out of thin air, and ordinary people will directly explode to pieces. Just now I left my hand and let the explosion happen half a meter away, although ordinary people in this range still die of hemorrhage. In internal organs, the Thousand Hands clan has a strong body and can leave half a live person. Chapter 75. So what Hu Ming said just now, he left his hand and did not lie. If it was directly detonated on the Thousand Hands with a knife, a pile of broken limb remains would have been obtained at that time. As for ignition, it is also because the immortal body has been improved. In the past, it took about a second to watch for a flame to slowly appear and burn at the target. But now, flames appear in an instant. Hu Ming gently touched his eye sockets and felt the power of these eyes. And the flame that appears has a spirituality that will rush to the target. Even if the target is not combustible, it will strangely burn down. I don't know what the immortalization of the Great Snake Pill will be. Humming raised his eyes and looked in a certain direction from a distance. In the perception of the immortal body, he was still a kilometer away from the experimental base, and he could already detect the breath of chaos and 957, and it seemed that there were many people fighting in a melee. In that breath, there was an exceptionally deep and cold breath. Compared with other breaths, this yin cold is more outstanding and the quality is significantly higher. That must be the big snake pill. Humming couldn't help but nod. When he was practicing in the back mountain, he had sensed the yin and cold aura of the Great Snake Pill, which was the power of the Great Snake Pill after the immortalization. Su. He continued to use the teleportation technique continuously, rushing towards the experimental base. Under the power of the immortal body, the stiffness of the instantaneous body was eliminated, and it did not exist in him at all, so he could use the instantaneous technique continuously without any scruples. Although the 2,000 hands on my side did not mean to be cruel to me, probably to give me a warning. But it's hard to guarantee whether the big snake pill is the same over there. After all, it's an experimental base. Will the research samples and materials in the base stimulate them to go crazy? Humming was a little worried. Deep in the forest. Bang, rumble, syllable. In the Mudan research base, more than 10 figures flickered, emitting a huge battle movement. Wind, thunder, earth, fire, water. 5 different attributes of the escape technique appear in turn, constantly unleashed in the hands of ninjas on both sides of the war. Restraint and being restrained, the cycle goes on and on. Rumble. After a huge explosion, the fighting all stopped. Surrender, your people are not enough to resist our attack. The ninjas who have combat power have been knocked down by us, and only you researchers who do not have much strength are left. An old man wearing a mask with grey hair looked at the research room deep in the base and said, everyone is from the same village, and I don't want to do anything. I destroyed all the research materials and samples and left. Guys, make a choice. In the research room, a research ninja with little combat ability became nervous. Many people's eyes began to waver. What should have been a secret research base was broken down by someone, and there were many traitors inside and outside the base, indicating that this was a high-level struggle within the village. They are just pawns. There is no need to roll up in the storm. Staying out of the way and waiting for the dust to settle is wise. Nice proposal, but unfortunately I can't agree to it. While the researchers hesitated, Orochimaru walked out and looked at the masked attacker with a chuckle. The data and experimental products inside are all very precious data and samples. If they are destroyed by you, I am afraid that my research will be interrupted for a long time, and the data recovery will take at least half a year. Orochimaru. The old man in the mask cast a sharp gaze. I don't think you figured out the situation. Do you think you can keep those disgusting, blasphemous things? Don't be deceived by the sun chopper. What you are doing now is trampling on the will of Lord Yuma. As the old man spoke, multiple figures came from behind. Among them, there are those of the Senju clan, as well as those of other ninja clans and factions in the village. Not only within the Senju clan, there are voices that oppose the study of the original Hokage cells. It's just that the leader is the internal faction of the Thousand Hands clan. Whether you can hold it or not, you will not know until you have fought. Orochimaru licked his lips and responded without fear. How daring! The old man's eyes widened angrily, and he said in a deep voice, "Originally, seeing that you have a good talent, I thought of only teaching you a lesson, and I didn't want to be a little bastard who was already addicted to depravity, and the old man would kill you today." Zheng. The words fell, and the old jerked out the knife. Read violent novels. Just go to Fellow Fiction Network, Idiaresis 1/4. Without seeing the blade, I saw a cold light jumping up from his hand, like an electric light, flashing in midair, and falling on the neck of the big snake pill in less than half a second. The researchers on the side changed color one after another. This knife was sharp and ruthless, without any left hand, and the cold murderous intent spread out like rain, making everyone seem to be on the battlefield of a killing battle. Bite. The big snake pill did not move, allowing the slash to fall on his neck, and there was a crisp sound of gold and iron clashing. Looking closely, patches of pale scales appeared on his neck. These fine scales blocked this blow. This shocking slash only left a bloody mark on the neck of the big snake pill. No wonder you dare to make a big fuss. It turns out that you have some skills. The old man wielding the knife glanced at it and sneered. Ha! The big snake pill let out a breath, and cold sweat broke out on his back. He didn't react at all just now, but instinctively entered the immortalization state and created tough snake scales to block the attack. I can still enter the eyes of my seniors. The big snake pill just wanted to put a few mocking words, but his face suddenly changed. Bang! Under his feet, the earth broke, and one hand held a kunai and stabbed his right foot. Orochimaru flashed back, but the soles of his feet were still pierced. Gurgling blood flowed from the wound. The big snake pill could only stand on 1 foot 1.8, and his expression was gloomy. This is the art of beheading into Juan's heart. It's just that the spellcaster did not choose to pull the big snake pill down, but first scrapped one of his feet. Little fellow, do you think the real battlefield is like just now? There is room for you to talk? The old man's voice suddenly sounded beside him, cold to the bone. I can only say that you, Tunai tilde Macron. The big snake pill felt a big chill in his heart, and goosebumps rose up in an instant. He turned his head in shock and looked to the side and back. He did not see the old man, but only saw a cold sword light, like a crescent moon, slashing towards his fragile eyes. At this time, 200 meters away, Humming suddenly noticed something, looked up, studied the direction of the base, and a gloomy and cold aura expanded rapidly. Chapter 76. Hisue! There was a high-frequency, sharp snake sound in the air. He stopped and looked ahead in surprise. A huge pale arrow flew into the air, and the moonlight shone on it, reflecting the sparkling light like a lake. The body of this arrow slowly stretched, revealing its original appearance. It was a 20-meter-long white-scaled snake. Hiss! The white-scaled serpent spit out scarlet snake letters, emitting a cold and wet snake sound. The big snake pill. Humming looked at the white phosphorus snake in surprise and said a name. That's right, this big snake is exactly what the big snake pill transformed. In the perception of Void Ming, just now, The natural energy on the body of the great snake pill expanded rapidly, entering the deep immortalization. It's really exactly the same as in the original. Humming sighed slightly. The later great snake pill, on the road to studying the immortalization of natural energy, also abandoned his human body and turned into a huge white-scaled large snake, and appeared as the Yagi Great Serpent in the battle between Sasuke and Itachi. "This is the path you chose," Humming said to himself. The path of immortalization is different for everyone. Just like the spell mark in the later life, each person who was given a spell mark by the Great Snake Pill showed a different form. His eyes are alienated and awakened to the pupils of immortals. The choice of the Big Snake Pill should be to abandon the human body and transform into a huge legendary image. For this image, Orochimaru chose snakes. This degree is equivalent to the tail beast of the human pillar Force 05, and the strength is comparable to the shadow level. It seems that I don't need to rush over so much. Humming smiled, and his hurried pace slowed down a bit. Research base. Snake? Where did the big snake come from? Psychic? No, it's the big snake pill that has turned into a super big snake. Countless researchers looked at a 20-meter-long white-scaled snake in front of them in shock. The attackers, on their part, were equally shocked. One by one, the ninjas stopped moving and looked at the giant snake in front of them in surprise. A few seconds ago, under their gaze, the big snake pill's body soared, exuding a violent aura of power, and turned into a huge white-scaled giant snake between breaths, thus avoiding the sharp sword of their initiator. This feeling, immortals. The old man wielding the knife retreated tens of meters and looked at the giant snake incarnated by the big snake pill in amazement. The previous research on natural energy was really successful by him. As a person with 1,000 hands, the old man naturally knew that the great snake pill had asked Uzumaki Mito for information about the natural energy and immortal patterns. Only, that was last year. And I heard that it was a failure. Hinata, Mito, you are hiding really deeply. The old man sighed in a low voice. He reacted immediately. Someone helped the big snake pill to cover up. However, there is obviously a bright road to take. Why should you take the dark road? You learn from the experience of Lords Eugen and master the immortal mode, but you want to do blasphemous things on the corpse of Lord Pillar in turn? To the old man, kneel down to Lords Eugen to apologize. The old man was furious, and the bruises on his arms were prominent. His figure suddenly disappeared, and the next moment came to the giant snake, and the blade in his hand turned into a cold light, blooming like a flower. Ding ding. A dense and high-frequency slashing sound sounded from the body of the giant snake. In a matter of seconds, the sword light collided dozens of times on the body of the giant snake, each time bursting out of Mars and leaving blood marks. Abominable. The eyes of the giant snake show a humane solemnity. For the old man's words, the big snake pill did not have any fluctuations in his heart. The battle of ideas was needless to say, and as for the matter of recognizing his immortal into an immortal model, there was no need to mention it. He just got it tricky. The blood sac in the chest was completely released, and the natural energy invaded the body, like a tailed beast, temporarily turning into a white-scaled giant snake. But there are still some who can't withstand the attack of the old man. Such a subtle sword technique, it can't be seen on the surface, but on each sword, there is a sharp change in the nature of the wind, which even becomes his instinct to make a sword. Otherwise, my scales that are enough to resist the detonation charm cannot be broken. The big snake pill did not dare to let the old man attack him, and manipulated the huge snake body to start counterattacking. Bang, bang. He flicked his tail and swept around like a stone pillar, smashing hard from time to time. The ground was smashed into small pits the size of a bathtub. The attackers scattered, sealed from all directions, and cast ninjutsu on Orochimaru. Fire Dragon, Fire Rat, Thunder Strikes, Wind Escape, Wind Blade, Tudao Huang Marsh. In addition to Shui Juan, all kinds of escape techniques greeted the big snake pill together. Wind, fire, thunder attacks, earth escape changed the terrain for restrictions. In an instant, various ninjutsu lights lit up around the giant snake, as if they were in a grand fireworks. Boom, boom. The big snake pill at all the techniques, the developed muscles of the snake's body erupted, and its body swam everywhere like an arrow, pumping out one attacker after another. Wound for injury. There must be movement on the other side of the village, and someone will feel it in 3 minutes at most. If I hold on a little longer, there will be reinforcements. Orochimaru thought secretly in his heart. Fusion ninjutsu. Below, the old man suddenly abandoned the knife and roared. Yes, read violent novels. Just go to Fellow Novel Network, IDRS's 1/4. After he spoke, several shanin suddenly leaned over, their hands sealed. Big snake pill, you are still too tender to play with the old man. How can I give you time to delay? The old man made a deep voice, and his hands quickly completed the seal. A big breakthrough. Wind and kamikaze. Wind is cap vacuum jade. The wind escapes the net. The 4 upper ninja hugged the old man and unleashed 4 wind ninjutsu. The art of singing the fire dragon. The old man completed the seal at the same time, unveiled the mask, and spat out a blazing flame from his mouth. As soon as the flame appeared, it split into 4, turned into the form of a wandering dragon, caught up with the previous 4 wind ninjutsu, and then his body skyrocketed several times, turning into a large fire dragon of more than 6 meters. The wind fuels the fire. Oops! The snake eyes of the big snake pill contracted rapidly, surrounded by 4 large fire dragons, and with his huge body, there was nowhere to escape. Rumble! 4 fire dragons slammed into the white-scaled giant snake, causing a violent explosion. A large number of flames and shockwaves spread, sweeping a radius of 300 meters. The smoke rushed up to a height of 100 meters, like a flash bomb, illuminating the forest at night. On the ground, countless large trees were cut off, and the flowers and plants turned into black ash. A minute later, the aftermath of the explosion dissipated, the research base collapsed and shattered, and the surrounding ground was scorched black, emitting wisps of blue smoke. The old man and several attackers appeared in a flash, returning to the epicenter of the explosion. A white snake lying on the ground appeared in their eyes. The white snake closed its eyes, the scales on its body dried up and broke, bursting open dense wounds, but no blood flowed out, but the aroma of cooked flesh wafted out. It's a shame, a little guy with such great talent. The old man looked at the white snake and shook his head. The other attackers also returned, sighing regretfully. Yo, the first time I saw Orochimaru, you looked so miserable. Suddenly, a young man's voice came from the ruins of the research base. What man? The old man was shocked in his heart and suddenly looked back. He saw a boy with black hair and black eyes, smiling softly on the rubble of the base that had been burned by the flames, and there were flames burning around him, but the boy seemed to see the heat as if it were nothing. Humming? When the old man saw the young man's appearance, there was an uproar in his heart. The attacker next to him also looked at Humming with surprised eyes. None of them realized when Humming was 463 here. Ho ho, you try a wind and fire fusion ninjutsu head-on. What shocked them even more was that the giant snake that they thought was dead actually regained its body and made the sound of a big snake pill. If it weren't for protecting the research base, I would have run away with that move just now. The giant snake propped up its body, and countless scales fell. The wounds on his body were cracked by the movement, and he was bleeding profusely. But in the eyes of the giant snake, they were still agile, and there was no weakness. Fortunately, I researched a technique from Mujuan, which just came in handy. Otherwise I might really not be able to survive just now. The giant snake spat out letters, and its body trembled. The gloomy and cold aura on his body disappeared, and in its place, a rich breath of life emerged. Swish, 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 branches and green leaves grew out of his wounds, plugging the gap in flesh and blood. There were also vine-like plants, growing, spreading, and intertwining in the flesh and blood, as if undergoing suture surgery, repairing his broken blood vessels, nerves, and bones one by one. You, the old man pointed at the big snake pill tremblingly. so angry that he couldn't speak. The other attackers also glared angrily at the big snake pill. They uttered hateful curses. That's the Mudan power of the first adult. Profanity. You are blasphemy. Damn ape flying son, his disciples are not good things like him. I'm going to kill you. The big snake pill just chuckled when he listened, twisting the huge snake body, making a crackling and crisp sound, and the severely injured body was recovering quickly. Just 10 seconds. His snake's body was covered with branches and leaves, and all the wounds were filled. From a distance, a pale giant snake crawls slowly on the ground. Its body is luxuriant, gently swaying, like some kind of mysterious creature in the legend of the forest. The perfect combination of plants and animals on its body, showing a stunning beauty of life. Chapter 77. Even if it is a hostile attacker, some people can't help but admire the current posture of the giant snake. It's like a beautiful flower arrangement artwork under a master. So that's it. Yuming also looked at the giant snake with emerald green branches and leaves on his body, but he was not looking at the appearance, but using the perception of immortals to judge the state of the big snake pill at this time. Use immortalization to deal with immortalization? It's really a direct means, but it does work. Humming chuckled. In the body of the giant snake, he sensed both the yin cold aura and the Mudan breath, and the two forces existed at the same time. The power of immortals naturally has a strong assimilation of foreign objects. The same goes for wood cells. However, the big snake pill introduced a small amount of Mudan power, and then entered the deep immortalization by himself, using his own immortal power to suppress the exertion of Mudan power. This is like the Tuanzang in later generations, where the Sharinganai is transplanted on the arm to suppress the Mudan cells, so that the power of Mudan can be used to a certain extent. Deep immortalization is like the complete tail animalization of human pillar power, and it is easy to get out of control. Looking at the giant snake with admiration, he secretly said, but the introduction of Mudan power, in turn, can also help the great snake pill resist his own deep immortalization, which is equivalent to driving away the tiger and finding a balance in the scale. But this balance is fragile and can easily be upset. Mujuan's strength is still too strong, and the big snake pill is used once, and it has reached the limit of the safe range. Void Ming sensed the aura of power in the giant snake's body and knew that the condition of the big snake pill was not good. At least, not as good as it seems. Those branches and leaves that grew out of the wound were the manifestation of Mujuan's uncontrollable strength. If it is perfect control, nothing will grow superfluous on the body. Come to think of it. Humming gave a meaningful smile. Since you are here, I will teach you here. The big snake pill stretched his body full of tender branches and green leaves, pretending not to see the faint smile, and with a tone that gave you the opportunity to perform, he dragged the huge snake body to crawl out. I'll treat the wounded. In fact, this will make the big snake pill panic, and his heartbeat will be a little faster. Fortunately, the humble came. Otherwise, if he fights for a while, he will not be able to suppress the power of Mudan in his body, and will turn from a white snake into a pile of manure, and the flesh and blood of his body will grow out of plants. Humming chuckled and looked at the big snake pill with a mocking gaze. Your strength is not below me, solving them is not a problem. Humming. The skin of the big snake pill was as thick as a steel plate, and after dropping a sentence, he crawled out dozens of meters away. Face is such a thing, lose it. But the enemy is current, and the aura cannot be lost. Then let me be your opponent. Wan Ming also did not expose the disguise of the big snake pill, looked at the group of attackers with a smile, and said, I just want to see the methods of your predecessors. Several attackers led by the old man looked solemnly at Humming. Instead of relaxing, they became more vigilant. This fourth disciple of the ape flying sun / is rumored to be even more talented than the great snake pill, and I am afraid that he is an even more difficult enemy. The sudden appearance of the false sound just now, they were unnoticed. Since you appeared here, it means that Rudu and Terai have failed. The old man's voice was low, and he raised his hand to take off his mask, revealing a simple face full of wind and frost. Well, let the old man try your color. It's just a humble boy, fight me, one careless will die. With his movements, other attackers also took off their masks and abandoned their face-to-face disguise. One by one, familiar faces appeared. All of them were the elite upper ninja in the village. "Old-timer, it's you who should be careful." Humming smiled faintly, and in his dark eyes, a golden and red scorching light lit up. "Don't let me kill you all at once." Zheng. The one who answered the false voice was the brilliant sword light pulled out of the old man's hand. Dot. Dot. The experimental base is more than 600 meters away. Uzumaki Maito and Danzo stopped and looked at a huge white snake in front of them in amazement, letting out a low neigh, and its thick tail swept around like a stone pillar. Then, 4 huge fire dragons appeared. The huge white snake was surrounded by a fire dragon, and the two sides collided, causing a strong explosion. Flames spread out like soup, watering the forest for hundreds of meters, burning all the plants in the area into char. The orange-red light, separated by a distance of 600 meters, felt dazzling. Uzumaki Maito and Danzo could even feel the shaking of the ground. Read violent novels. Just go to Fellow Fiction Network, Idiaris 1/4. That was Wind and Fire Fusion Ninjutsu. Tuanzang said in shock, "It's so amazingly powerful. I'm afraid that even steel can melt the temperature in the central area." "I'm more curious about what that snake is," said Uzumaki Maito. "Isn't that a psychic beast?" Tuanzang was stunned for a moment. Anyone who sees such a huge snake for the first time will think that it is a psychic beast of the ninja contract. The huge size is one of the criteria for ninjas to choose psychic beasts. Uzumaki Water did not speak, and she felt the immortalized aura of the great snake pill from the giant snake. "This giant snake is most likely transformed by a large snake pill. But I had never heard of any technique that could turn a person into such a huge creature." "Maito-sama, look." Suddenly, Tuanzang's extremely surprised voice came. Uzumaki Maito looked up, and the whole person was immediately shocked. "I saw the giant snake in the explosion of the fire dragon, supporting its skin and flesh body, and branches of trees grew from the wound, and green leaves spit out green leaves on the branches, turning into dense branches and leaves. In just a few breaths, the white giant snake is covered with all kinds of plants, Gudzao, exuding a strong breath of life, as if the natural magic work has shown some miracles of planting on its body. In the blink of an eye, this giant snake full of branches is like a god who came out of nature." "That was the power of Mujuan?" Tuanzo trembled in disbelief. "That's right. That should be the initial development and utilization of Mujuan's power by the Great Snake Pill," Uzumaki Maito said with a complicated expression. Danzo glanced at Uzumaki Maito silently and sighed secretly. Mujuan's research has always been a thorn in the heart of Uzumaki Maito. "Maito-sama, let's move on." Tuanzang changed the topic and said. Uzumaki Maito collected his mood and nodded. The two continued to hurry with the teleportation technique. Behind him, the two teams of the Thousand Hands clan and the Dark Department looked at the giant snake in front of them in amazement, but none of them made a sound, just followed behind in silence. Chapter 78 Research Base. The old man pulled out a brilliant sword light, like a crescent moon, shining on Void Ming's head. "This is an illusion left by the naked eye. The real scene is a lightning-fast blade that tears through the air and slashes sharply at Void's head." Boom! In Kuming's eyes, a golden red light flashed. With him as the center, a circle of annular air at a distance of 10 meters around instantly heated and expanded, releasing an impact force comparable to the explosion of the detonation charm. The crescent-like knife light shattered and was scattered by the blast wave of the explosion. "But there is no old man." Airplanes. Suddenly, there was another trembling sound of a blade. This time it sounded behind Humming. With such a fast speed, Feng Dun is almost perfectly integrated into the instantaneous technique. Humming turned his head to look behind him, his expression a little surprised. The old man's body was wrapped with a layer of strong wind, which could hardly be found without looking carefully. "This is a highly compressed wind chakra," forming a translucent wind film. The wind film counteracts air resistance while providing propulsion. The person called Temple Enlightenment who blocked him on the road just now also knows the skills of wind escape plus body technique, but it is only a skill. But this old man in front of him is two techniques, wind escape and instantaneous body technique, almost fused into one technique. More than 5 times faster. Boom. However, the virtual sound detonated the air again, centered on itself, and a heavy explosion pushed outward until 107 spread 60 meters away. The light of the knife from the rear shattered again. But the figure of the old man disappeared again like a ghost. Boom. Yuming did not search for the location of the old man, but narrowed his eyes slightly, and the light in his eyes was bright, and the golden and red colors were intertwined, turning into a brilliant gilded light, shining all over the ground like a great sun rising in the east. In an instant, the temperature of the environment rises sharply, from the early 20s, suddenly pulled up to more than 60 degrees. This temperature has exceeded the harshest desert in the world, and even a physically strong ninja who is exposed to it for more than 10 seconds is at risk of heat stroke shock. What? Why did it suddenly get so hot? It's the power of those eyes. Manipulate the pupil technique of the fire. Damn, my throat hurts. It's going to get burned by the air. The people within a range of 60 meters looked at the gilded sound of their eyes in amazement. They did not dare to stay and all fled. This temperature has exceeded their tolerance limit, and staying for one more second may be life-threatening. After high heat, it's high heat. Humming ignored them, but raised his eyes and swept around. The cross markings in his eyes froze, and the flowing orange-red light in them soared, releasing an astonishing amount of heat. Where the gaze focused, flames burned out of thin air. With Void Ming as the center, within 60 meters, all the areas swept by his line of sight, whether it was air or dirt, were all burning with vigorous fire. These flames traveled with his line of sight, like a fire dragon, extending his body without limits. In front of the fire dragon, a cold light flew and galloped. The cold light flickered and turned, like a shooting star, dragging down the slender light and shadow. The fire dragon chased behind it, billowing and burning, like a fluttering moth. Look at it from afar. One red gold, one silver white, 2 rays of light wandered and entangled in midair. Bang! The rubble of the door of the research room, blocking the path of 2 rays of light, was first cut in half, and then suddenly exploded, shattering into gravel the size of a ping-pong ball. Bang! A certain corpse was wiped by 2 rays of light, shattered in an instant, and flesh and blood were blown up everywhere. Bang! A fallen tree was pierced by 2 rays of light, suddenly shattered into countless wood chips, burned in the air, and turned into a rising flame falling 60 meters away. Everyone looked at these 2 rays of light in horror. They did not dare to approach at all. This is Lord Ziyui's sword light and false flame. People with good eyes can recognize the essence of the 2 rays of light. The former is an old man named Senju Ziyui, with a knife on his body, creating a sharp cold light in ultra-high-speed movement, and the latter is a flame summoned by the false sound eyes, AFBB. The forces of the two collide and strangle each other at super speed. It's so fast, I can't see it at all. Master Ziyui, forget it. Why is humming so strong? Read violent novels. Just go to Fellow Fiction Network, Idiaresis 1/4. Yes, how can Void Ming have this level of power? 60 meters away. Both the researcher and the attacker had expressions of disbelief on their faces. What surprised them even more was that such an amazing ultra-high-speed chase lasted more than 3 minutes. With the void sound as the center, the surrounding 60-meter area has been completely covered by flames. The fire dragon is like an oil brush, little by little painting the surrounding air and land with the color of flames, forming a semicircular huge fire cover, in which the terrifying high temperature is raging. The soil on the ground is already showing signs of melting. In the fire cover, a cold light existed tenaciously, like a sharp knife cutting paper, tearing cracks in the fire cover, but it was filled by the fire dragon in an instant. This tearing and filling lasted a full 3 minutes. During this period, Everything around has been shattered by Void Song and Senjutsu. The aftermath of the power of the two achieved a complete clearance. These two are also too terrifying, right? Those watching from outside had to retreat farther. This kind of battlefield, even if Shangnan enters, I'm afraid it won't last a few seconds. I didn't expect Senjutsu to be so old and have such amazing strength. This young man is no wonder that he was accepted as a disciple by the ape Flying Sun. The two of them, who can't hold on first. Everyone stared nervously at the battle on the fire cover. They know that the final outcome depends on the outcome of the battle ahead. If the Full Song wins, it means that the attack is bankrupt. If Senjutsu wins, it means that the attack can be fully successful. Shout! Suddenly, that galloping cold light burst up, as if it turned into a huge moon, descending from the sky and the earth, tearing the huge fire cover in half. At the incision, the flame was extinguished inch by inch, as if it had encountered a nemesis, unable to burn. Lord Zui won? The attacker said excitedly. Their faces just showed joy, but the next moment, the soaring cold light suddenly disappeared, turning into a figure that fell heavily to the ground. Lord Zui? The smiles of the attackers froze on their faces and rushed up to check on the situation. The researchers, who were originally nervous, suddenly relaxed when they saw the fire cover disappear and the faint sound of standing peacefully in it. Lord Zui? The attackers rushed to the figure that fell to the ground. One by one, they were shocked, and their expressions seemed as if the sky had collapsed. Chapter 79. I saw the old man lying on the hot ground, his breath like gossamer, and his bare skin was dry and cracked. In his right hand, he held a broken ninja knife, and the blade was burned red. The scene was silent. One by one, the attackers gathered around the old man, crying and mourning, and their expressions were like heaven collapse. Win. In the distance, the white-scaled giant snake incarnated by the big snake pill flashed with a look of surprise in his eyes. Although I guessed that Qianying would win, the other party is Thousand Hands Zui, the guy who ended the Warring States period with the Thousand Hands pillar and the made great battle achievements. Even if you win, how can you peel off your skin? I didn't expect to win so easily. Hissing dash. Orochimaru sighed and spat out the letter. I thought that he had developed a method of using Mujuan's power to counter the power of immortalization, so as to master the state of deep immortalization, and he was already fast enough. This is equivalent to the level of complete tail beastification of human pillar power. Completely tailed beast. Looking at the entire ninja world, not many people can do it. But the people who do it are all big killers on the battlefield, capable of sweeping a large force, and the enemy cannot be stopped without moving. Unexpectedly, your progress is faster than mine, and the power of those eyes is completely controlled. Orochimaru sighed to himself. He sometimes feels powerless about the rate at which his friend's strength is growing. The other side. Uzumaki Mito and Danzo rushed to the scene with people. As soon as the two appeared, they attracted the attention of everyone present. Mito-sama, Danzo-sama. Great, reinforcements are finally here. Two adults, the hit is there. The researchers were particularly excited and pointed in a certain direction. Uzumaki Mito and Danzo looked at it, and immediately narrowed their eyes, locking onto 5 standing figures and a figure lying on the ground. You are in charge of the scene here? I'll go over. Uzumaki Mito said. Good. Danzo hesitated and nodded. The two separated. Uzumaki Mito walked towards the attackers over there, and Danzo turned to command the dark department to treat the wounded and tidy up the scene. Mito-sama, Mito-sama, Mito-sama. After Uzumaki Mito walked over, several people standing saluted her with complicated faces. You guys are so capable. Uzumaki Mito looked at them expressionlessly, and after taking a deep look at the 5, he shifted his gaze to Sanjushiki on the ground. Zui, you are also a person who has fought with the pillars all your life. It is rare to retire with your whole body. Why don't you enjoy the night in peace? Since we have all fought all our lives, of course, we have to fight until we die. Senjuzui's voice was weak, but his tone was still firm, and his eyes did not waver in the slightest. Alas! sighed Uzumaki Maito and shook his head. Boy over there. Kainzu did not look at her, but slowly turned his head and looked at Kuming. The gaze of Uzumaki Maito and the others also followed. Tens of meters away, Humming sat on the ground, panting slightly, and his body was sweating like a pulp. The strength of his eyes had all converged, and he had returned to his ordinary dark eyes, and his face was resting tiredly at this time. Continuously fighting with the pupil of the immortal for 3 minutes was also very difficult for him. If it weren't for the immortal body, he would have been tired and lying down long ago. Senior, you are really terrible. That kind of high-intensity battle, you can actually hold on to me for 3 minutes. Seeing Senju Wanming showed him an admiring smile. If you are on the battlefield, I am afraid that a squadron of ninjas is not enough for you to kill. HMPH, when the old man was young, he could kill a large team of people, Senju said proudly, but in the next sentence, he changed his tone. But now I'm old, I can't compare to you young people. I used all my strength and dragged you for 3 minutes, and I didn't find a chance to attack you. You guy is a little monster, even more terrifying than when the old man was young. This time, it was the old man who lost. Senju let out a long sigh, and the chakra aura on his body dissipated. The wind membrane maintained on his back disappeared. The ground, which had been immersed in the heat and faintly about to melt, transmitted the high temperature in the soil to Senju-shiki's back without hindrance, setting his flesh and blood on fire. Crackle dash. Senju-Zuyui's whole person began to burn with flames. Lord Zuyui, you read violent novels, just go to Fellow Fiction Network, Diaresis 1/4. Uzumaki Maito and the others were surprised. The battle just now has exhausted all my strength. Even if you send me to the hospital now, it will be difficult for me not to survive. Senju-shiki said calmly, just let me die here. My death here is also a good thing for Konoha. Uzumaki Maito and the others couldn't help but be silent. Zuyui Sr., it's really relieved that you can die calmly. Huming came over and looked at him with a sigh and said, HMPH, you kid is really poisonous, and he is still talking about the wind and cold at this time. Senju glared at Wanming, turned to look at the few ninjas in front of him, and said, a few of you, you won't be able to live 1,000 hands in the future. And let others don't toss it, live honestly. Just say that I said it by 1,000 hands. Zuyui. Lord Zuyui? Several of the attackers were puzzled. When Lord Pillar was 12 years old, he was not as terrifying as this kid is now, and sooner or later he will become someone who surpasses Lord Pillar. Kainzu Zuyui closed his eyes and said in a deep voice, since he will surpass Lord Zujian, Mudun is not a rare thing in his eyes. The nobleman does not covet the money of the commoners, because the servants of his family spend more than the commoners. With this kid here, I'm not worried that Mudun will be used astray. After speaking, he let out his last breath and stopped breathing. Crackle dash. Flames swept up, enveloping his body. Senju folded his hands in front of his chest, his face calm, as if there was no pain, and went to eternal peace in the ashes. Lord Zuyui. Several of the attackers fell to their knees, crying silently. The hot earth burned their knees and calves, slowly scalding their skin, muscles, nerves, and even bones. But they were unmoved, allowing their legs to slowly fall into ruin. This farce is finally coming to an end. Seeing this scene, Humming sighed softly. Farce? Uzumaki Maito couldn't help but glance at him and smiled bitterly in his heart. Senju-shiki is a ruthless character who was killed from the Warring States period. This kind of person organized a large number of ninjas to launch an extremely sudden attack, but it was equivalent to the Union Village rebellion launched by the Golden Horn and Silver Horn that year. This will be in a hurry in the Hokage building. But in your vain eyes, it turned out to be just a farce? Maybe you're right, Zuyui. Uzumaki Maito looked at Senju-shiki, who was a little ashed in the flames, and his expression was stunned. This child will definitely surpass my husband with 1,000 hands. Chapter 80. Crackle dash. Humming watched as 1,000 hands Zuyui was engulfed in flames, his flesh and blood faded. His internal organs were scorched black, and he turned from a strong person into a dry skeleton. His yank can save Senju Zuyui, but it will not save different positions from each other, living will only become an obstacle for the other side. The fight will cease only if one side dies. Otherwise, such attacks would have happened countless times this evening. Wanming will not choose to die by himself, then he can only let Sanjuzui die. What do you think about the others? Uzumaki Mito asked, glancing at the people kneeling on the ground. Just do it according to the arrangement of Zui's elders. Humming said lightly. If the leader dies, the others can fall lightly. After all, no one knows how many people are in the opposition, and if they are forcibly pursued to the end, it will easily cause chaos and cause turmoil in Konoha's July 13th. Well, then do as Zui says. Uzumaki Mito nodded, not speaking. Several people kneeling on the ground. The knee has been completely burned, and he will spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair. Humming sighed in his heart, and did not stop them. As an assailant tonight, it is impossible to get out of it without paying a price. These people are well aware of this. I'll go see the big snake pill. Humming glanced at a few people, then turned and left. Behind, Uzumaki Mito and several attackers were silent, quietly watching the still burning bones of Renti Shiki. Humming strides into the depths of the forest. 200 meters away, at the bend of the river, the water flows slowly. A white-scaled giant snake soaked in the river water, half squinting, countless branches on its body drooping, gently shaking in the night breeze, making a rumbling sound. From afar, it looks like an ancient snake integrated into nature. The big snake pill. On the bank of the river, Shimura Danzo was like petrification, and the whole person froze. Orochimaru? He looked at the giant snake in amazement, his face full of disbelief. How did you become one? A snake? Uncle Tuanzo, this is the power I get from practicing natural energy. The giant snake, it should be said that the big snake pill, spit out the letter and said with a smile, immortal mode? Tuanzang's face became even more puzzled. But I remember. The immortal mode is not like this. No, this is immortalization. The giant snake shook its head and said, immortalization. Tuanzang chewed the words, lost in thought. When Humming came, he saw such a scene. He walked to Tuanzang's side, looked at the giant snake, perceived it, and his face couldn't help but become strange. Big snake pill, it seems that you have been going to keep it like this for a while. Yes. The giant snake nodded helplessly. As a side effect of using Mujuan's power, this price is simply mild. Humming commented. That's true, too. The giant snake's eyes flashed with a smile, and I have experienced this time, and the next time I use it, I can avoid most of the side effects. Sighed. Tuanzang listened confused, not understanding what the two masters and nephews were saying. The power of Mudun and immortalization is clashing in the body of the great snake pill. Seeing his doubts, Yuming explained. But this explanation obviously cannot solve the confusion of Tuanzang. What immortalized power? Tuanzang has never heard of this word at all. Let me say it. The giant snake raised its head slightly and slowly spoke. After absorbing the violent natural energy, using your own flesh and blood as the medium, after adapting, you can enter the autonomous immortalization state without the help of the three holy lands. And the power of Mudun is highly similar to immortalization in nature. Even if it is not, there are 90% similarities. The big snake pill used his immortalization power to resist Mudun's power, suppress Mujuan's erosion to a certain extent, and enjoy Mujuan's resilience. But the first time he used it, it was inevitable that he was unskilled. The branches that now grow all over the body are actually a manifestation of Mujuan's uncontrolled power and overflow. If it is a perfect suppression, Mujuan's power will be completely used for recovery, and it will not be revealed at all. So, I can't exit my own immortalized state right now. The big snake pill said helplessly, otherwise, it will be immediately devoured by the power of the Wudun involved in the body. Either the cells will collapse and die, or it will turn into a humanoid plant alive. Tuanzang listened with a stunned expression. These unheard of information deeply shocked him. He now looked at the big snake pill and the false eyes, completely changed, especially the eyes looking at the false name, a piece of horror and solemnity, as if looking at a rare treasure. Zero. Can't you cut these branches off? Tuanzang thought about it and asked. Read violent novels. Just go to Fellow Fiction Network, Idiaresis 1/4. It's useless, the branches are just a manifestation. The giant snake moved its body, and during the crawling process, many branches and leaves on its body were crushed and broken, but the next moment it grew back and spit out new branches at the fracture. In essence, it is Mudun's power that remains in my body, and I need to use the same level of immortalization power to consume little by little, and slowly wash away Mujuan's power. Tuanzang nodded in understanding. This knowledge is beyond his comprehension. Doesn't that mean that Mujuan's power is only available to you? Tuanzang suddenly noticed a problem and couldn't help frowning. We don't have the power of immortalization. Just choose the sealing technique. Humming chimed in from the side. When the giant snake heard this, he smiled and nodded. Huanming, you really guessed my thoughts. That's the idea. Huanming glanced at him with a smile and said to Tuanzang, first intercept a part of the Mudun power, and then let the big snake pill weaken it with natural energy, and then apply the 4-elephant level sealing technique, just like creating a human pillar force. Seal the weakened Mudun power to the ninja, and when you use it, unlock part of the seal and release the power. But in that case, the risk is still very high. Tuanzang hesitated. Uncle Junior, this is a famous Mujuan. How can he not take risks? Humming helplessly asked him. 4.3 The truth is this. Tuanzang smiled bitterly and looked at Humming with emotion. But people always fear death. Is there a safer way? Humming shook his head. The giant snake also shook its head. Is there really no way? Tuanzang was not dead, looked at Void Ming and asked, Void Ming, I also saw your special eyes just now, which are also a kind of immortal power. Right? You can let this power go freely, can't you reduce the risk of Mudun a little more? Uncle Junior, does the original Hokage need to reduce the risk of Mujuan? Humming couldn't help but roll his eyes. In essence, you guys are too weak. If you are strong enough, that little bit of strength has no side effects at all. This, okay. Tuanzang sighed heavily. Helpless. Chapter 81 Wanming was chatting casually with Orochimaru and Tuanza here. The other side. At the experimental base, the people of the Dark Department and the Thousand Hands converged the scene, helped the wounded to treat the wound and sent them to the hospital, and at the same time opened the damaged base and excavated the materials and samples that had not been destroyed inside. At the beginning of the base design, various possibilities for destruction were considered. Explosion prevention is also one of the construction indicators. In addition, the large snake pill flesh compartment withstood part of the explosion, so the research room at the core was not much damaged, and 70% of the data and samples were preserved. I won't tell you, I have to write a report. Tuanzang chatted for a while and found that there was no way to reduce Mujuan's risk. At least in a short period of time, there is no way to do it. He left with a smile and dropped a sentence. Riz on the side of the Hokage Tower, I'm afraid I'm going to die in a hurry. Uncle Junior, go slowly. Big snake pill, void. Tuanzo returned to the experimental base and took over the scene. After checking the situation specifically, he quickly wrote a report. 06 for the dark part to take away and give to the 3 generations of Hokage. As for himself, he remained at the experimental base and acted as the primary person in charge. Uzumaki Maito did not stay, but returned to the village with some of the dark parts. She is responsible for dealing with all the people left by Senjutsu. Stubborn killing, sensible and well-behaved grounded. Ninja is not a soft-hearted profession. What's next? Sitting on a stone on the bank of the river, his feet soaked in the river water, he asked in a casual tone. What is the idea? Is to recover the body first, and then continue to study Mujuan. The big snake pill was soaked not far away, only one head rested on the shore, and the body was all immersed in the river water. I'm just asking you what you're going to do next. Wanming looked at him helplessly. Then I really have an idea. Orochimaru nodded. After a pause, Orochimaru told his plans. He intends to introduce the power of Uchiha, which is inspired by the words before Humai. Senju and Uchiha have loved and killed each other for thousands of years, and the high power between them should be equal. Otherwise, it would not have been possible to fight for that long. If one side is weaker, it has long been annexed by the other side. Writing Wheel Eyes. from 1 hook of jade to 3 hook jade, can only be said to be the top blood succession limit, but once awakened to the kaleidoscope level, it becomes the power of the broken level, and even the tailed beast can suppress it. Orochimaru pondered and said, the blood lineage of the Uchiha clan seems to focus on spiritual strength, and externally manifests itself as pupil art on the eyes. The blood inheritance of the Thousand Hands clan focuses on physical energy and is externally manifested as a strong physique. Body and mind, body and eyes, there is always a subtle fit. Orochimaru said in a deliberate tone, as if neither of them is complete, that each is a part of the other's lack. Humming silently finished for him. Yes, that's how it feels. The big snake pill's eyes widened, and the snake's eyes flashed with essence. This feeling is right, because a long time ago, 2 forces were together. Humming said lightly. Is that really the case? The big snake pill spat out the letter, the whole person. The whole snake was excited. Snap dash. The tail is constantly flapping in the river, splashing one after another. Hey, water splashed on my face. Humming said dissatisfied. Oh, sorry. The big snake pill immediately stopped flapping his tail and just twisted around in the river, like a big snake entering distress. Ming was about to continue to reveal some information, but seeing the big snake pill suddenly said, the secret of these 2 races is very interesting. Don't tell me first, I want to explore slowly, just like finding the treasure according to the treasure map. Yes. Humming was stunned for a moment, and said with a smile, that's okay. Since Orochimaru found it interesting, he would not reveal the mystery in advance. Spoilers are not good behavior. After spiral pills, 1,000 birds, medical ninjutsu, immortalization, wood done cells. With the influence of these 5 research projects, the scientific research talent of the big snake pill has been fully developed. In some areas, he has already caught up with him decades after the original work. There is no longer any idea of a layman meddling in to direct the insider. Hokage building. Late at night, but still bright. The 3rd generation of Hokage stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, smoking a pipe, and looked solemnly at the eastern forest of the village. With his eyes, he could see the flames rushing into the sky over there. It's a fight. The 3 generations of Hokage sighed sadly. The scene he least wanted to see still happened. Suddenly, a figure flashed in from outside the office, kneeling on one knee. It was a dark part that came back from the scene. Naruto-sama, a secret letter from Elder Danzo. The dark part presents a scroll. Read violent novels. Just go to Fellow Fiction Network, Idiaresis 1/4. Oh, get it. The 3 generations of Hokage hurriedly let people take it, and after checking it by his subordinates, they handed it to the 3rd generation of Hokage. He quickly opened the scroll. Not surprisingly, it is Tuanzang's report on the situation on the spot. There are tens of thousands of words, focusing on the battles that took place at the research base and the damage to the research materials. After reading the report, the 3 generations of Hokage breathed a sigh of relief. When he looked out the windows, looking surprised, and relieved. The attacker is Senju Yui, a good hand in the upper ninja. Obviously at an age, he still maintains amazing strength, and with the 5 upper ninja of the Senju family, together with the 5 upper ninja who were rebelled in the base, he directly tore through the defense of the research base. But fortunately, their 2 disciples were able to turn the tide. 013. The big snake pill turned into a giant snake and saved the information. Then Wanming felt that with a pair of strange pupils, he defeated Senju Yui head-on. This is the power of immortalization. The 3 generations of Hokage sighed softly. It is worthy of being a high-level power pursued by all generations of strong people. The 2 teenagers who were only 12 years old, their bodies were not fully developed, and after entering the immortalization, they resisted the pressure of a group of upper ninja attacks. Put it on the battlefield. This is the performance of the top ninja. In the blink of an eye, you have grown to this height. The 3rd generation of Hokage couldn't help but sigh and whispered to himself, it's so good. The next generation of Konoha already has the power to protect the village. Meanwhile, in the village, Many ninjas were alarmed by the explosion in the distance and saw the flames that rushed into the sky. Many people were secretly worried and put on their equipment. Not an enemy. The matter has been settled, rest assured. Please don't leave your home at will. There will be a curfew in the village tonight. The Dark Ones reported the situation in the streets and maintained order. Many people have no bottom in their hearts and are very worried. Only Uchiha clan land. A pair of scarlet eyes lit up, and the sharp and long gua rotated in these eyes, releasing a gloomy and cold aura. Chapter 82. That location. Is it a research base set up during the second generation period? Well, if I'm not mistaken, it's to study Mudun. 3 generations. Did they restart the Mudun project? The opposition within the Sanju clan has always been very loud, and it seems that this evening is a struggle within them. The group of Uchiha whispered. As the only 2 Hao clans in the village, Uchiha knows many secrets. The matter of the second generation Hokage's study of his brother Mujuan's power, many years ago, was not a secret, and many high-ranking Shanin had heard about it. Mujuan, Uchiha Kagami, was also in the crowd, looking at the fire in the distance, his eyes thoughtful. The Mudun project has been semi-abandoned because of its lack of progress. Sudden restart. Did it achieve anything? Or maybe they found someone who could work something out? Uchiha Kagami muttered, and the faces of the 2 people appeared in front of him. Humming. Orochimaru. Perhaps you can try it? Uchiha thought in the mirror. Although he is the uncle of Wonming and the Big Snake Pill, he has a close personal relationship. But he also has his own position, with the identity of the Uchiha family, which is something that cannot be left behind. So he had to seek benefits for the family. 3 days later. The research base was cleaned up, the dark part completely abandoned it, and the site was selected for another construction. The opposition led by Thousand Hands Zui was all silenced, and all the people within the Thousand Hands clan were grounded, and they could not leave the clan for life. Others secretly warned, rising and degrading, moving to unimportant departments. The high level of the village, who is qualified to know, also basically understands the situation. No one has a problem with this, because the conclusion has been made. The leaders of the opposition are dead. The 3rd generation has received a good student. Yes, Kuming can actually confront Ziui's predecessors head-on, and his strength is no weaker than Shangren. He's only 12 years old, and he has a great future. The Big Snake Pill is not bad, and there are back-and-forth fights with an upper shinobi. At least there is a special level of upper shinobi. In the circle of those in the know, many expressed amazement. Of course, the information they knew had been cut by the Dark and the 3 Hokage. The version that circulates is that Humming dragged down Sanju Zui and insisted until the arrival of reinforcements. The Big Snake Pill did not turn into a giant snake, but fought against the base anti-water upper ninja, and with the help of the environment, entangled for up to half an hour. This may sound surprising, but not to the point of being bizarre. Many people have accepted this version. Humming knew that this was a kind of protection, and although he felt that there were not many people who could threaten him now, he couldn't bear to refuse. Therefore, this circulating version is also defaulted to. The forest of the back mountain of Hokage Rock. In other words, I'm in a severely injured state now, can't you let me take a break? Tsunade? Wonming looked helplessly at a yellow-haired girl beside him. On the other party's body, there was a smell of grassy shampoo, which was very good. Probably just took a shower before going out. Am I getting in your way here? Tsunade glanced at Wonming. As he spoke, he stretched out his feet and soaked in the pool like a full sound. 10 delicate white toes, mischievously swinging in the water. Not really, but I want to sleep, and I'll have to talk to you when you're there. Humming glanced at it, then politely looked away and said with a sigh. So you're going to sleep? Tsunade wondered. But here you are. You've been talking to me. Humming sighed. Oh, then I'll be quiet. Tsunade reached out and made a stitching motion at the side of his mouth. You'd better be really quiet. Humming glanced at her, closed his eyes prayerfully, lay down on the large rock by the river and began to take a nap. Recently, or since the second half of the previous year. The frequency with which Tsunade came to him visibly increased. In fact, the two of them didn't have much to say. Either Tsunade complained about the trivial things that happened in life, or she watched Wonming doing various things. Nothing interesting happened along the way. However, this situation can last for more than half a year. This makes Humming incomprehensible. 12-year-old Tsunade removed the baby fat on his face, and his facial features gradually opened up, revealing the beauty that belong to women. Although he is still very young, his figure has changed in the direction of height and curves. Theoretically, it's time to reach out to men and women. It's not that she didn't think that Tsunade was interesting to her, and she also considered what the teacher and Jiraiya teased him before, but the problem is that he doesn't feel hormones at all when he gets along with Tsunade. The scene was boring, like two boys talking. I don't like a person's expression and gesture at all. You're not gone yet? When he woke up, he was surprised to see Tsunade on the stone next to him. The sun has tilted to the west. He slept for 2 hours at once, from 3 to 5. Are you not happy that I stay here? Tsunade raised his eyebrows in dissatisfaction. No, doesn't this see that you are usually busy? Humming quickly explained. When looking for a reason, the tone is a little more serious. Okay. Tsunade glanced at Wonming speechlessly, but I didn't know why, but I still accepted this reason, and said with a serious face, recently, the training of medical ninjas has come to an end, and with the available manpower, there will be a lot of rest time in the future. Uh-oh. Humming touched his head and nodded. The scene suddenly fell silent. Humming was a little embarrassed, and he didn't know what to say. He felt that he really had nothing to talk about with Tsunade. Could it be medical ninjutsu? That kind of thing, it has long been said to be rotten a year before. Good. I said, do you hate me? Tsunade looked down at the pool and suddenly asked. This definitely doesn't. Humming immediately shook his head. Then why do you always show an alienated attitude towards me? Tsunade asked as he kicked his hands and feet into the pool. Read violent novels. Just go to Fellow Fiction Network. Irises 1/4. Humming sat a little waxy, turned his head and looked away. He didn't know how to answer this question. Do you say, I think you like me, but I don't have anything in common with you, so I avoid you? That's faux pas. Then let me ask you. Humming was silent for a few seconds, decided to solve this puzzle that had been entangled for many days, and asked, do you like me? Saying that, Humming turned his head to look. His eyes met Tsunade's. Then, in those beautiful bright brown eyes, he saw calm and calm. Yes. Tsunade looked at him seriously and replied,